Hello, Dr. Carys Moseley, it's a pleasure to meet you. So, Dr. Carys Moseley, you studied classics and theology at the universities of Cambridge, Oxford and Edinburgh, and you also taught theology and Christian ethics at the University of Edinburgh. I understand you currently work in public policy research for Christian Concern in the United Kingdom. So, Dr. Moseley, the UK has seen a massive change of guard this year. A conversion therapy ban is still in talks. Transgenderism is a constant debate as well. Do you think that the UK government will become more conservative in the matter of LGBT?
I wouldn't say so, actually. I think it's very unpredictable, this government. If we think outside the box for a minute about relationships and sexuality education, particularly in England, the cabinet is torn about this and about the related policies. So we were just told some of our clients, Nigel and Sally Rowe, had been appealing and doing a judicial review against the transgender policy for schools, which is not directly the education, but the policy around behaviour. And now the cabinet is disputing this. So the education secretary says, well, trans people should be able to wear what they want, whereas the Attorney General is talking about protecting single-sex sports and so on, according to biology. So that's quite a big difference, I think. But if you've got the Education Secretary speaking like this, what does that say? Because I think he's also involved with equality in the Cabinet, okay, and so would be responsible for a conversion therapy ban. And that's a bit of a problem. So it's always going round in circles in Britain, especially in England. And I'm not convinced that politicians alone can solve this problem. I think it's got something to do with the legal advice that the government is getting from its own lawyers. There seems to be a conflict there. And ultimately, that's an issue of culture and worldview. So that comes back to the importance of Christians speaking out and explaining the importance of biological sex, that we are created male or female. So I think there's everything to play for. From our point of view, rather than just sitting back and thinking, well, will they, won't they be conservative? Even the ones that would say we support biological sex, there's limits to that. All of that cabinet voted for relationships and sexuality education in England. Right. And now they're being confronted with the evidence for that, which includes the confusion that children are suffering from. We know from some of our other cases involving children. And of course, the government has said it wants to bring in a conversion therapy ban for minors. What it was wobbly about was whether it would extend completely to adults, like in Canada or parts of Australia. But back in December, the government was saying, well, yes, we will allow adults to consent to choose therapy. It's not entirely clear to me where that promise has gone now. And I say that because the government has funded a charity called Gallup to arrange the National Conversion Therapy Victims Helpline. And when you read the attendant website that goes with the helpline, it denies that it's possible to consent to what they lump together as conversion therapy. We've seen that this week. So my big question is, what does the government think about adults consenting to therapy? It's not even conceding that children could consent to therapy that would help them be more in harmony with their biological sex. So I don't believe that we can just say, yeah, I think this government is going to become more conservative and a little bit more reasonable and reality-based. I think it's all in flux.
Yes. It's a very interesting perspective. Thank you very much. Could you share with us what makes you feel the most hopeful about the United Kingdom and the international community in the area of sexuality and gender?
I think there's more and more awareness that there are serious problems. And a lot of this, certainly in the United Kingdom, is because of the huge increase in children, actually of both sexes, not only girls, being referred to gender identity clinics. You've got to remember there are lots more boys as well, and the media doesn't want to talk about that. But obviously in society, people know about that. And if people are thinking to themselves, well, this is radical disconnect from the body. And when they're gradually seeing children being influenced by schools, because most children are still in mainstream education and are not being pulled out into Christian schools or homeschool, I think you can no longer deny that these are problems. So I think I am hopeful, and I do see signs of parents looking and saying, what can I do? And it's important that people ask the question, what can I do, not just how this happened. they're proactive. So I'm hopeful about that people will pay more attention to the life cycle and think about the influences. You've got to understand that surveys already show that most people don't believe that people are born that way, but people aren't allowed to express it. But I think that what we're going to see with what's actually comprehensive sexuality education across the Western world, especially, and some of the developing world, is people questioning that more openly because it's so obvious it's coming from bits of the curriculum. So I think that's my big hope at the moment.
Wow. And what advice would you give, for example, Christian teachers or social care workers, people who care about these issues, who care about maintaining biblical values, and who also care about these ideologies not being forced onto children?
I would encourage them to ask schools for copies of what's being taught, because it's one thing to read about it, but you've got to have the solid proof. Some schools may be better or worse than others. So especially if you're a parent, you can make freedom of information requests. You can go and ask the school, and if they refuse, then you do that freedom of information request. And you can escalate that. There are proper procedures in place for doing that. We've actually got a guide on our website on how to approach the school the right way. You don't go assuming the school is trying to do wrong. You've got to remember that teachers themselves are under pressure. The teaching unions are all part of the problem, actually. Yes. If I were to give one practical piece of advice to teachers is form new teaching unions, because the trade unions should be helping you and protecting you doing your job. They shouldn't penalise you. So yes, but would be my practical advice about that, is ask to see the actual curriculum material and then check that against what the principles are laid down for if you live in England, Scotland, Wales, whatever. And they will be on government websites.
Okay, thank you. That's very informative.
Yeah.
So what message would you like to leave IFTCC learning trainees with?
I would say don't give up. I would say, I'm assuming that people who are coming are therapists, but they could be people from other professions who just want to take part in some of the course. I would say get to know the situation internationally. Get to know your own country, but also try to find out which countries are a little bit like yours. So for example, Commonwealth countries are often like each other. So I know from being from the UK that Canada is often very similar because historically have had similar laws. We get influenced a bit by Canada as well. Our lawmakers like to look to countries like that, or to Malta, or to the Australian territories. Whereas maybe if you're in continental Europe, there'd be a different pattern. So French-speaking countries might be similar to each other, for example, or countries which are Eastern European. So I would say try to get together with people from countries that are similar to yours, first of all, and then learn from the others that are different, because the people who want to push these policies all work internationally as well, and you notice a pattern. So I think that's very important to do.
So thank you very much for all your information, Dr. Moseley. I believe it's going to be very helpful to our IFTCC learning trainees. And so God bless you and have a good day.
Thank you.